but there is so much controversy. There is so much controversy associated with this vaccine that it brings a lot of doubt and questions to our minds as to whether or not it is safe. So I'm gonna just have you sit back a little, relax, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna share this video, and I'm sure it will kind of give an understanding of where we're headed this evening. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead, and I just wanted to listen. It's not my, I'm just sharing it, it's not my production, okay?
No volume. Not hearing anything.
Oh, we have no volume.
I'm sorry, Dr. Crew, there's no volume.
No volume.
You'll have to unshare the content, and then when you share again, make sure you check off audio at the bottom.
Were we hearing at all?
No, go ahead and share again, but before you click share, there should be a button at the bottom that allows you to share audio, a little check mark in the box. So go ahead and share your screen again.
And pharmaceutical companies
Are you hearing now? Okay,
around the
good.
world are racing to develop a safe COVID-19 vaccine. Investors, public health specialists, and other experts are watching closely to see which company gains regulatory approval first. But there's a big question lingering over the process. How do we balance safety with speed? Because of the urgency of the pandemic, the White House has launched Operation Warp Speed, which provides funding and other assistance to help companies speed up the development and distribution process. Under this program, the White House has chosen 5 different vaccine candidates to fast track. 4 of the 5 candidates are being developed by seasoned companies, such as Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Merck, and Johnson & Johnson. The only newcomer on the list?
Moderna,
Moderna, which is one of the most promising COVID vaccine creators, has already started phase 3 trials late last month.
We're putting our bets behind Moderna.
Shares of Moderna are swinging this morning.
You sell Moderna, you buy Gilead.
If Moderna can do it, you know that we're going higher.
Moderna was founded 10 years ago and has yet to bring a product to market. But its new approach to a vaccine have many people hopeful for an alternative viable candidate during the pandemic. Here's where the high-stakes race for a coronavirus vaccine stands. Biotech company Moderna, as well as Pfizer, which partnered with the German biotech company BioNTech, have been working on what's called an mRNA delivery approach to a vaccine. Many think it could be the best option for rapid production during the pandemic. Traditional immunization methods involve injecting a dead or weakened form of a virus into the body. This triggers the immune system to create proteins called antibodies, which protect a person in the event a live virus gets into their system. The mRNA vaccine approach doesn't require injecting a virus into the patient in order to create those antibodies. Messenger ribonucleic acid, or mRNA, are molecules that exist within the body that transport instructions to the part of the cell that creates proteins. The mRNA approach to the vaccine is to encode instructions into a synthetic strand of mRNA on how to create antibodies to fight the virus. Once those programmed strands of mRNA are introduced, the body's natural process of creating proteins takes over, and it reproduces the antibodies without needing the weakened virus present in a person's system.
The Moderna and Pfizer vaccines both use this brand new technology known as Messenger RNA. And there are differences in the two vaccines, in the way they're formulated, in the way they're put together, and actually in the way they're dosed. Pfizer's vaccine is given as 2 doses 3 weeks apart, whereas Moderna's is given as 2 doses 4 weeks apart. Now, from the outside, these vaccines are going to look very, very similar, except in that dosing regimen. But because there are these small differences in the way they're made and designed, they could work differently in different populations.
This new approach to a vaccine has never been approved by any world regulatory body. There are some advantages to the mRNA approach. Because the vaccine doesn't contain a virus, the participant can't get infected by the vaccine, which is a risk for traditional immunization methods. The mRNA vaccine would also be easier to manufacture. Traditional vaccines that use a dead or weakened form of the virus must be grown inside live cells. The production of these vaccines is slower. For example, the most common way for the flu vaccine to be manufactured at scale is to grow the vaccine's viruses within fertilized hen eggs. Those eggs are incubated for several days to allow the viruses to replicate. The viruses are then killed, purified, and go through extensive quality testing before distribution.
You're not dealing with any live virus, so issues relative to containing the virus don't exist. It is a streamlined process. It's new, so you're not dealing with legacy manufacturing issues, and it's quicker. So you can manufacture quicker, higher quality, and to a global scale, which is exactly what we need. The only questions are, these are new technologies. We're still learning how to do it exactly right. And I'm convinced that there won't be any vaccine on the market that has not done it exactly right, because the only thing worse than no vaccine is a vaccine that is either not efficacious or unsafe. That's not permissible.
When the White House selected the 5 vaccine candidates in early June 2020 to receive prioritized access to clinical trials, it signaled that the government favored these drug makers' approaches to the vaccine over others. The U.S. government doubled down on this preferential treatment by pre-ordering 100 million doses from Pfizer in July 2020 and 100 million from Moderna in August 2020. But the vaccines are still being tested, with both Pfizer and Moderna's mRNA candidates entering late-stage clinical trials in the summer of 2020. Vaccines typically go through 3 stages of clinical trials before they receive regulatory approval. The first stage tests the vaccine on a small group of healthy volunteers to ensure the drug is safe to give to a larger group of people before moving forward. Phase 2 is larger, with several hundred people receiving the vaccine. This stage is to help figure out the best dosage for the vaccine, as well as to continue monitoring risks and side effects.
But obviously, everything is a risk-benefit proposition. So for some conditions, like, for example, ovarian cancer or lung cancer, the drugs can be very lethal, but the disease is even more so. So you wouldn't accept the same degree of risk for a cancer medication as you would for an allergy medication.
Phase 3 studies are conducted on thousands of people. During the third stage of a study, researchers are monitoring for safety as well as how effective the vaccine is. Moderna's Phase 3 study involves around 30,000 participants across 89 sites in the United States. Half of them will receive the vaccine while the other half receive a placebo. A placebo is a drug that is made with inactive ingredients, so it will not have any real effect on the patient's health. The trial is a double-blind study, meaning neither the candidates nor the researchers know who received the placebo and who received the vaccine in order to prevent bias. Phase 3 trials typically last anywhere from 1 to 3 years, but the pandemic has led to the studies being fast-tracked.
We anticipate our base plan for efficacy for the first interim readout to be in November. That's our base plan. Our best plan is October. I think it's unlikely, but it's possible. And if the infection rate in the country was to slow down in the next weeks, it could potentially be pushed out as a worst case scenario, I would say December.
Part of what's extraordinary about this process is everything has been shrunken. It is unheard of in vaccine history to go from the development of the vaccine into phase 1, 2, 3 trials within a span of, what has it been, like less than 6 months at this point.
People always ask me, who's going to win the race? Who's going to be first? And here's my answer. I don't care. I just want a safe and efficacious vaccine as quickly as possible that passes the appropriate regulatory and scientific muster.
It doesn't necessarily matter who gets to the finish line first on a vaccine, because the supply of the vaccine will be so limited at the beginning that it's not a winner-take-all situation here. Basically, you need all hands on deck to be able to supply this vaccine to try to build up immunity so that we can stop the transmission of the virus.
Because of the urgency of the pandemic, many experts expect some of the vaccines to be approved for wider use by the FDA through what is called an Emergency Use Authorization, or an EUA.
That doesn't necessarily mean it's a lower standard. That EUA allows them to stage the authorization, the access to the vaccine, to different high-risk groups.
An emergency use authorization is not the same as full approval.
It sets a lower bar, essentially, in order to get drugs or vaccines to market faster. And now they would emphasize that the lower bar in terms of vaccines doesn't mean that they aren't sure that it works and they aren't sure that it is safe. It just requires less paperwork to get through the approval process.
The FDA has granted an emergency authorization for certain coronavirus treatments that have shown promising results in treating the virus in severe cases. One notable example is the emergency authorization for Gilead Sciences' Remdesivir, a drug typically used to treat Ebola.
For drugs, for example, the threshold for getting an EUA is to prove that there may be benefit of using the drug that outweighs any risks. Vaccines have a higher bar because they're given to healthy people. So where you're using a drug to treat somebody who is already sick, there might be more of a tolerance for risk there. With vaccines, the tolerance for risk is very low. They have to be extremely safe. You can't cause problems with vaccines when you're trying to prevent problems in healthy people.
The FDA announced in late August 2020 that it was considering fast-tracking a vaccine before phase 3 trials are completed. Soon after the announcement, 9 CEOs of major biotech and pharmaceutical companies working on vaccines pledged to only submit for approval or an emergency use authorization after demonstrating safety and efficacy through a phase 3 study.
Operation Warp Speed makes some people concerned that speed is the main goal here in developing vaccines. And speed is a goal in developing vaccines, but folks involved in the process emphasize that proving that these vaccines actually work and that they are safe is the foremost consideration here.
Reuters has reported that Moderna has been, quote, squabbling with U.S. scientists during the regulatory process.
Moderna is showing that it's got problems understanding how to work with the FDA. And I'm not present at these meetings, but the press has been that Moderna is arguing with the FDA over a number of different issues, scientific issues. And it's good to have those types of robust debates. But at the end of the day, the FDA is going to call the shots based on what it feels is the best path forward. And Moderna, while it's free, of course, to do whatever it feels is the best thing for it to do as a company, will ultimately have to let the FDA make its decision. So, early arguments are oftentimes a harbinger of problems to come a bit later.
A company that is bringing its first product through the FDA approval process, this product happens to be a vaccine to try to help stop a pandemic. There are going to be a lot of questions there, and we're watching a relatively young company, a relatively unproven company, figure this out in real time. A lot of times there are bumps in this road, but the world isn't watching them. Moderna is trying to go as fast as possible. The FDA is also trying to go as fast as possible, but they need to work out exactly how to go as fast as possible while also ensuring the highest degree of safety and getting the best data. And so while that report came out a few months ago, I haven't heard as many rumblings about potential disagreements between Moderna and regulators recently.
When asked for comment on the report, a Moderna spokesperson told CNBC, "We are focused on our goal of producing a safe and effective vaccine expeditiously and rely on several important collaborations in reaching our objectives. On any given day, we have many different interactions between Moderna and representatives of the US and other governments as we work together to successfully respond to the pandemic." Even though an mRNA vaccine will be easier to manufacture, there will still be an issue of creating enough doses for mass distribution during a global pandemic.
What we anticipate is if you look at the few manufacturers that are both in the clinic already and that have scale for manufacturing, and if you do the math, it's only a couple companies, we will all be supply constrained for quite some time, meaning we won't be able to make as many products as will be required to vaccinate everybody on the planet.
In order to speed up the process and make sure vaccines are immediately available after approval, many companies are manufacturing doses before the clinical trials are completed. This process is called manufacturing at risk.
They're manufacturing tens and hundreds of millions of doses with the hope that once their product gets approved, they'll be that much further ahead of the game and we can begin inoculating people sooner in the proposition. However, if their programs do fail, and some will, all the doses that they manufactured will have to be destroyed. And that's an extremely expensive proposition. So one of the things that Operation Warp Speed does is it cushions that fall a little bit. It allows everybody to be smart and also more aggressive. And that's what we need to really defeat this virus in warp speed.
Since there will be a limited amount of vaccine doses at first, the distribution process must be more selective.
I like to make the analogy, an emergency room doctor doesn't go to everyone waiting and say, all right, I'm giving everyone 5 minutes equally. No, they look at who's having the most severe health problems, who's got the heart attack. They focus the attention there. And that should be the same approach with the vaccine. Where can the vaccine do the most in terms of saving lives initially? And then once you've saved a lot of lives and you've reduced the mortality rate, where can it do the most to reduce the adverse economic impacts of COVID? Those are the two primary considerations in distributing a vaccine among countries.
More than 170 countries are in talks to participate in the World Health Organization's global effort called the COVID-19 Vaccines Global Access, or COVAX facility. The goal of the program is to speed up vaccine development, ensure all countries have access to the vaccine, and distribute doses to the highest risk population within each country. The White House announced on September 1st, 2020, that the U.S. does not plan to join the initiative, a move which has experts concerned.
Vaccine nationalism, it's called, keeping the vaccine for my country, is a natural response. Governments are responsible for the freedom and well-being of their citizens, but there's a limit to what they should do, and there's also some obligation to the world.
The consistent message through all my experiences has been, an outbreak anywhere is an outbreak everywhere. I think it's narrow-minded for us to go back to looking at this as nationalistic approach, because you can't with infectious diseases. They do not care what border they're in. They don't need a passport. It is in our benefit to ensure that the rest of the world continues to get the vaccine, access to the successful vaccine, and that the rest of the world is protected, because we live in this world. Until we can get this vaccine to every corner, or vaccines to every corner of the world, we can't really go back to normalcy.
It's also possible that an American company may not develop the vaccine first. If a country involved in the COVAX facility develops an effective vaccine, the U.S. could be excluded from the coordinated effort to distribute it equitably. So, what will a post-vaccine world look like? The head scientist of Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Monsef Salawi, said in early September 2020 that he expects there will be enough doses to vaccinate 20 to 25 million Americans by the end of 2020.
I think it's possible that we'll see a vaccine broadly available towards the end of the first quarter of 2021, but it's clearly going to slip into 2021. I do not think you're going to see a vaccine licensed by the FDA, get a biologics license application for broad distribution in 2020. I think you're likely to see a staged authorization where incremental groups are getting access to the vaccine through the end of this year, assuming that they work and that they're demonstrated to be safe and effective.
That means that there's going to be a period of time between now and next summer where our reality stays about the same. We don't know what's going to happen with the virus itself, but I don't think that I see a lot changing. I hope that what we find is a better balance in which we continue to take the mitigation measures, so we don't have to take more extreme measures such as lockdown. As long as we find that in-between space where we can operate businesses, where we can keep the community transmission down enough to continue, pursuing colleges, schools, and a huge part of this is going to be keeping the numbers down.
There's concern among public health experts that distrust of vaccinations could hinder achieving herd immunity.
And unfortunately, one of the groups that is most suspicious of the government are communities of color, for lots of reasons, but there is suspicion. And these are the same communities that have higher rates of infection. So it's the perfect storm of problems here.
There'll be a question of whether or not we need to continue vaccinating the population. And does this coronavirus, the SARS-CoV-2 become like the flu, where we need to, or pneumovax, where we need to continue vaccinating every year or every other year? And what would that mean in terms of continuing to maintain that herd immunity? So those are some of the things to think about in terms of normal. The question of whether or not we go back to normal, well, it will depend on where you live in 2021.
More than 30
Okay, so I want to believe that that answers most of the questions. I could just close right here because we saw the video, we saw it from scratch of everything, what started and how it's ending as we speak. And we can look, I'm just going to be brief with the rest of what I have to say, and then I'm going to turn over to Dr. Gale. And I just want us to just look at this slide to say that in the 1940s, we had just about 4 vaccines that were recommended. Okay, and then they had combined 3 of those into the well, we call it DTaP now, but we have combined 3 of those vaccines, but that's all that was recommended in the 1940s. We move on to 2020, and there are ton loads of vaccines that have been recommended. And these are vaccines that we use. These are vaccines that we've not had much of a questions about. And we tend to have so many questions about the COVID vaccines. So I'm hoping that when we looked at that, we were able to understand why the vaccine was produced in such a fast manner. Now, when we think about an emergency, we think about a serious, unexpected, often dangerous situations, which requires an immediate action. So the vaccine was not available for immediacy as the virus took place, but they sped through the phases, and we learned how the phases work and how long each phase takes. Has spread across, and for us, it's the whole world. No need to think about multiple continents. It's all over the world. And this is why we're having this emergency. And when we think about endemic situations, when they are widespread, we're thinking about a stable number of infected people, not so in a pandemic. It's like you're not able to control the affected individuals in a pandemic. I'm not sure how many of us were listening as that gentleman spoke when he says people of color are doubtful about the vaccines, and I see that every day. And they're also now, I don't know if we're listening to the news where a Texan is guilty of saying it's the Black folks who are causing the havoc in the pandemic. But I just want us to look at a little slide I have here. Let me see. Hold on. Let me look at this one first. This one is showing us the daily trends over the past couple of years. But my interest is on this one here. If we look on the corner here, we will notice that the dark line is the overall deaths that's happening, or sorry, the overall hospitalizations. If we look at the clearer dotted lines below here, right? The one at the bottom, in the middle where I'm pointing, that would be whites. But then when we look here, this line is always on top. And that would be our own African-American counterparts. Now, I'm just gonna give a brief experience. I was up in New York in the vaccination rollout with the Department of Health. One site would be the Javits Center in Manhattan. And most of us here on this medium, I think, are from New York, or we know about New York and Manhattan, the center of the center. And our center, we had 647,000 vaccines done there. And I can assure you that as I speak, I don't think the 47,000 were African Americans. People from all over came to take vaccines. People were pulling in their suitcases, just got off the plane. They took airplane to come here to get vaccines. And I see we still have the doubt, and I see where we also are always involved in the conspiracy theories that are existing out there. But, and this is why I'm leaving this chart for us to understand that even though this chart is suggestive of what the hospitalization looks like among our own people, I want us to understand that it was a big issue, and all of us can remember, even the pandemic, that we were disproportionately, we were the ones who were dying. And we're seeing the same thing playing out again and again because of our distrust, and which I can understand. It tells me they are fearful because they have had instant. We have rights. We have a right to do what had happened in the Tuskegee situation. I can understand, but I believe we are a very forward set of Christians that we need to try to each other so that we can move farther away from the conspiracies that exist, and just think about what is really happening and what part we can play in helping to quell this pandemic, which again is blowing over again. And as I'm saying, this chart is not a chart from 2020. This is just this 2021. All right, I'm gonna stop here, and I'm gonna put the program over to Dr. Gail.
Okay. Can you see me okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I am not seeing myself. So I'm not,
yes,
okay.
we can. Yeah, we can see.
Okay. So as you know, my specialty is hematology oncology, and immunity is a very vital part of your whole blood system. You cannot live without a bone marrow. Well, I want you to understand that the cells that are involved in your immune system starts in the bone marrow. So you have your antigen presenting cells. That is the detective of your immune system. Then you have your CD4 cells that are the T helper cells. That is like the general. He makes decision of where, what, and who does what in the immune system. And then you have your CD8 killer cells. These are like your snipers or your shooters. And of course, you have your B cells, and these make antibodies. And your antibodies are like little policemen. They move around into the immune system, into your bloodstream, and they're looking for anything that doesn't look like you or altered you. Now, when these cells are made in the bone marrow, they then go to the thymus, which is a gland that sits in the middle of your chest. It's smaller in the adult, but very large in the child. And that's school. They go to school to learn who are you, what make up you, and anything that is altered you. And once they are trained and they're learned that, then they now go out and they search into your entire bloodstream looking for anything that's altered. Then the detective will get it, the antigen presenting cell, it will engulf it, present it on its surface, and takes it to the T helper cell. The T helper cell then decide that this must be eliminated if it is seen anywhere in the body. So it calls upon the the B cells and says, make some antibodies, and if this shows up again, you cuff it, uncuff it, get rid of it, kill it. It called upon the CD8 cell, the sniper cells, and said, shoot it at arrival. You don't want to see it there. And so that's how your immunity works. So you have the cellular immunity, that's your CD8 And humoral immunity, that's your antibodies. And they're just proteins, but they're trained proteins looking for anything that's unlike you. It is there to protect you. Think about your security alarm system in your home. It is there to alert you if an intruder comes in. It's there to alert you if a burglar enters your home. And so that's what your immune system does. It's there to protect and to alert and to trigger and to kill anything that is going to harm you. So the whole idea of vaccines is to utilize this mechanism of protection to protect you. Think about your security system. It is there to alert you that a burglar entered. So it is with the vaccine. The vaccine is there to alert you that a virus or intruder entered your cells or into your body, and it's time to take action. The vaccine is training your body to be on the alert to watch for this particular virus or a virus or bacteria. And so over the years of vaccinations, we have been able to eliminate diseases that you may never have seen in your lifetime because of vaccines. For example, smallpox. When was the last time you had a case of smallpox? Think about polio. I'm sure you may have seen someone who had polio, but when was the last time you had a new case of polio? Because these diseases became eliminated because of these vaccines that were made to target these organisms. So for example, the polio vaccine is first of all, think about the bacteria or the virus as a gunman, a man with a gun. He has a hat, he has a jacket, a boot. So what these vaccines have done, they have either remove the virulence of the virus or bacteria. So it takes away what makes it deadly and then give it as a live attenuated vaccine. And so with that, the body then, the antigen presenting cell will take it, chew it up, present it to the general who is a T helper cell. The T helper cell said, make sure that this does not come back into this body. It notifies the CD8. If it comes up, kill it. It notifies the B cells, make antibodies, and as soon as it enters, uncuff it and kill it. And it says, not only do you do that, but then you create memory cells, a whole army, a battalion of you to recognize and to kill these cells. So you have a battalion or memory cells of the CD8 cells, a battalion or memory cells of the antibodies. And so if this particular bacteria or virus shows up again, it will be dead on arrival because your body will be ready, geared up for it. Now, this process of making memory cells and attacking and killing and making antibodies to kill a virus or bacteria takes 2 weeks. Now, so if we were to wait for that 2 weeks to come, a lot more people would die because some of these bacteria and viruses are so deadly that it can do a lot of bodily harm in 2 weeks. And so that's how vaccines help to protect you so that when you get exposed to these viruses or bacteria, your body is geared up and ready to attack and kill before it can harm you. Now, it is true that measles, mumps, and rubella vaccines are live attenuated vaccines. So basically they give you the virus to the patient. They take out the virulent part, the part that will make the patient sick, and give the shell of the virus to the patient so that they can make antibodies and CD8 cells to kill and attack if it comes back again. But think about the flu vaccine. The flu vaccine is a dead virus. It's not live attenuated, it is dead. They kill it, they decapitate it, and then give it to the patient, makes antibodies, remember cells. And so if the patient is exposed, then they're ready to harm. They're armed, ready to kill. those are live attenuated, those are dead viruses, dead vaccines. But with the COVID vaccines, it's a little different. And this has been studied for over 30 years. We had SARS that occurred in 2003. That was a coronavirus. We had MERS, Mediterranean respiratory syndrome. That was also it's Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome. That was also a coronavirus. And that was in 2012. And of course, in 2019, we have SARS-CoV-2, another coronavirus. In the SARS in 2003 had a 10% mortality. In the MERS, Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome virus in 2012 had a 34.6% mortality. 1 in 3 persons died. And in 2019, we have SARS-CoV-2, almost like Terminator 2, Exterminator 2, 3% mortality, 2 to 3% mortality. And so this virus keeps coming back. It's not the first time it's here. It keeps coming back, mutating itself, changing its behavior. This time it's not as deadly as it was in 2012, because now a virus needs the human body in order to replicate and to live and to survive. So it doesn't want to eliminate all its hosts, just a few of them, not all. And so SARS-CoV-2, which is the coronavirus, COVID-19, comes back. And now we're wondering, how can we immunize people in a way that we can have a massive, more robust response in the immune system to attack and kill this deadly virus? So if you recall, SARS-CoV-2 has the spikes protein on it. These spikes protein, they're necessary to attach themselves to the human cell and enter into the cell. Without the spikes protein, the virus cannot get into the cell and it cannot replicate. So what the scientists have done, they have made a vaccine to recognize, attack, and kill the spike protein. So you're not even getting you're not getting the dead virus. You're not getting the partially attenuated virus. All you're getting from that virus is just the piece of it, a piece of the protein on the surface of it. So this idea that I'm getting the virus, I'm gonna get sick, no. You're getting just a piece of it, the surface, a protein, a piece of it that allows this virus to attach itself to cells and go into the human body. So when the vaccine, over the past 30 years, scientists have been studying this virus and how to give a vaccine. They've come up with the whole idea of the messenger RNA. But if you recognize how messenger RNA works in the human body, what it does, it provides, it's like a cookbook, giving instructions on how to make proteins. So these are ribosomes within the cells. The main purpose of these ribosomes is to make proteins that repairs the cell, clean up, fix up the cell. It's like your home, you're in a house, the chair broke, the bed broke. These ribosomes make protein that will repair the chair, repair the bed. But they need instructions how to do that, and that instruction is via the messenger RNA. So the scientist says, well, we can hijack this human mechanism and let it make us spike protein that the body can now react to make antibodies and to make cells that will destroy it. And that's what they did. So the only question was, how can we get this messenger RNA into the human body so it can actually do the work it needs to do to get into the cell, because it's very fragile, it's very ubiquitous, it's disappear quickly. So what they did, Pfizer and Moderna, they basically wrap it into a lipid or fat layer, a nanoparticle lipid layer, to protect it so that when it is injected, it goes straight to the cells, into the cells to do the work that you want it to do. There is no microchip in your vaccine. There is no weird things in the vaccine. All that is in their vaccine is one, the messenger RNA, two, some sugar, some salt, some water, and the fat. Those 5 ingredients. And basically the salt and the water is there so that when it enters into your bloodstream, it will not interfere with the pH of your blood. So you have to have an equal pH to resemble the human bloodstream. So the salt and the water. And the sugar is there to preserve it when it freezes. So that's what's in the vaccine. No microchip. And once that is given, it then enters, it's now able to go into the lipid layer of your normal cell within your ribosomal mechanism, and the body doesn't recognize the difference in terms of your messenger RNA versus the RNA to give that instruction to make the spike protein. And so it now makes spike proteins, present it to the surface of the cell. Your detective, which is an antigen presenting cell, now recognize that your normal cell doesn't look normal anymore. You're now carrying this spike protein on the surface. It takes it to the T helper cell. He gives instructions to the CD8 cells and said, make sure if this shows up here anywhere in this body, you will make antibodies to capture it or uncuff it on arrival. It gives instructions to the CD8 cells to kill it on arrival. And so essentially when a person who is vaccinated, when you now become exposed to SARS-CoV-2, you are now ready. Your body is ready. You don't have to wait 2 weeks to get that immunity, because you know what's happening in 2 weeks. You may end up on the ventilator, you may not make it in 2 weeks. So your body is ready and geared. And as soon as this SARS-CoV-2 enters your system, whether through your nostrils, your eyes, your mucosa, the antigen presenting cells will take it, or the antibodies will take it straight to your immune system, to the lymph nodes. The lymph nodes are like the police stations where the general sits. And there he gives instructions to your immune system what to do with it. So that's what the immunity is all about. Now, you may say, well, if I get the virus and I survive it, then I'm immunized. Why do I even need a vaccine? Well, we don't know what part of the virus that you'll be making antibody to, or whether or not you'll make enough antibodies for that spike protein. You may make antibodies, more antibodies for the leg or the head or the foot, but not so much for the spike. So you may not have full immunity to that spike protein. When we give the vaccine, we can guarantee that you will be making antibodies to the spike protein, which is the way the virus enters the cell. If you don't get vaccinated and you get infected, you're giving this virus an opportunity to replicate, and that's what viruses do. They enter the human cell, they use the human innate ability to replicate and then make more of themselves. And as they're making more of themselves, they change, they mutate. And they can mutate, maybe not so much of a change, but can also mutate to something more deadly, meaning something more deadly than what the vaccine cannot cover. And it would hate to know that you are that vessel for that. So that's one of the, and so, 1 second, please. I just need to, yeah, there's just too much noise in the background. Sorry about that. Yeah, so what I was saying was, if you are not vaccinated and you become infected by the virus then uses your human cell mechanism to replicate itself, because that's what viruses do. And it is in the replication process, the virus then changes or mutates. And the problem is it may mutate to something more deadly, to mutate to something where the vaccine no longer is effective. And you don't want your body to be that receptacle of making something more deadly. The other thing is, if you do not vaccinate or get vaccinated, then you become a carrier of this virus, and then you may infect someone who is immunocompromised and is not able to protect themselves. These patients are not able to make antibodies or able to make CD8 cells. For example, patients who are on chemotherapy, patients who have had stem cell transplant, these patients are not able to make effective antibodies and CD8 or CD4 cells. So you not only owe it to yourself to protect you, but you owe it to yourself to protect others. There's so many other myths about the vaccine, but maybe I should allow you to ask the questions and then I can answer some of them.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gale, for the detailed breakdown, and thank you, Dr. Crew. Now, I'm sure we have questions, and this is your moment to ask your questions. So we have a chat room that you can ask your question through, or you can just unmute yourself, Davon, that's what they do, and ask your questions, please.
Dr. Gale, my name is Ivani. I have been listening to your information, and it sounds quite straightforward to me. My question is, first of all, if there was so much information on this vaccine, why did they have to do so many trials, placebo trials?
Okay.
And what, that's the second part of the question. What became of these people that had the placebo? What have they done about them?
Okay, so in the scientific world, you cannot, no matter how good and how sure you are of your own theory, you're not allowed to take something from your lab, no matter how brilliant you are, no matter how sure you are of your data and how it's going to work. You may try it in a rat and it works perfect, but you're not allowed under the government rules to take that information from your lab and give it straight to a human being. It's not allowed, it's against the laws. So you will have to do what's called phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 trials. So phase 1 trial is where you are checking for what is the right dose. What is the toxic dose, and what is the minimum dose? What is the right dose for a human? And a phase 2 trial is where you're trying to see if it's effective. So now you get your right dose from your phase 1 trial. And so with phase 1 trial, you'll have patients who get a little bit of dose, and then you escalate it to the second level, and then the next level, third level, and you may see which one is effective, and that's your dose. And you're also looking for what is toxic. So you want to make sure it's not toxic. You want to make sure it is effective. It's mainly what is the right dose, so it's not toxic. And then the phase 2 trial is where you try that dose that is not toxic to see if it's effective. And once you get the efficacy, then the next trial is it better than placebo? Or is it better than the standard of care? So for example, we are using, say, drug X to treat a particular disease, and I come up with this drug that says it's better. In order for me to prove that it's better, I have to compare it with the drug X that is on the market. So that's phase 3 trial. In the case where we don't have a drug X, then we do placebo. Is it better than not doing anything? So that's the reason for those phases. It does mean that they're following the scientific protocol. Do you follow?
Okay, doctors, we have a question in the chat room. Is the vaccine safe for lupus patients?
The vaccine is safe for anybody. And the reason is we're not giving the virus. We're not giving it live or dead. What you're getting is a protein, that's that spike protein to which you're making antibodies. The question is then, will the patient who has lupus make antibodies and have a good immune system reaction or response to the vaccine? And that's questionable. It all depends on what this particular patient is on at the time. If they're on prednisone or cyclophosphamide, which are drugs that we use to treat lupus, or azathioprine, or the other one's in my head right now, but those are drugs that are immunosuppressive. And so if the lupus patient is on an immunosuppressive drug, they may not mount the response that a patient would have mounted if they were not on immunosuppressive drug. But I still give it, because you will mount some response. It just probably won't mount the robust response that the patient who is not immunosuppressed will use.
Okay, another question is, why does one get the virus after being vaccinated?
So you can get the virus after you're vaccinated, but you just won't replicate it. So after you have both vaccines and you get the virus, it stops with you. You will not pass it on, because the virus is only transmissible when it's replicated. So once you're vaccinated and you're fully immunized, you will have your antibodies waiting at the door and your CD8 cells waiting at the door. So as soon as he shows up and enter into your cells or into your house, just think of your body as a community, and every house in that community is a cell. So when the virus enters through the door of one of your cells, one of your houses, your antibodies and your CD8 cells will be waiting there. Your snipers are waiting there to shoot at arrival, and your antibodies are there to uncuff it. So it will not get an opportunity to replicate. But it will enter your nostrils, it can enter your mucosa, but it just won't go any further from there.
Quick point here, Doc. In regards to the question that was asked, another thing too, we have to realize that after being vaccinated, you're going to take like 2 weeks or so to mount a response.
Right.
So you can still get the virus during that time. Now, it does not prevent us from getting the virus. What it does, if it happens, as Doc says, the security guards are there. So they'll ensue a fight, so you're going to feel something, but it's not going to be as severe as if you had not been vaccinated. So we have to remember that 2 weeks rule are just about, that's the period of time when you're going to start mounting an immune response to the vaccine.
Okay, we're going to see if someone wants to go to the mic before we go back to the chat.
There's a Victor, the hand of Victor Morgan.
Yes,
wait?
that's
Everybody.
yeah.
Sure. Hi, Doc. How are you doing?
I'm doing.
Should I say docs, both of you? Yeah, there's so much information. You partially answered my question I had. My question was, why is it then that after being vaccinated, you can be infected? And if I heard right this week on the news, they're saying that you can also infect other persons, right? My question is, is it the case of not building enough of that spike protein that you're saying? And is it possibly in the period when you got, they're saying that 2 weeks period that Dr. Crew talked about a while ago, or I don't know if it happens after that, or let's say you're in the 2 weeks period, can the virus you have, as you said, the virus is always tending to change its form, right? If I'm using a layman's term now, right? It's having variation of itself. Can it be that you have built up variations in that period that now the vaccine that you got before is not able to cope with the rate at which you're building these? And so if that's the case, what happens next?
So what we know so far is that there are millions of variants of COVID-19 out there, because every time the virus replicates, it's a little different from where it starts from, because it always had some minor changes that goes on. But what the scientific community is more interested about is whether or not it is so mutated that it has changed the spike protein. But so far, it has not significantly changed the spike protein. And so the vaccine still works because the vaccine is targeting only the spike protein.
Okay.
And so, as Dr. Crew mentioned, when you get your shot, it takes you 2 weeks to develop the antibodies and the memory cells. Essentially, the memory cells, the whole battalion of antibodies and battalion of CD8 sniper cells, in order to attack and kill any virus that enter your system. So during that 2 week period, you are vulnerable.
Right.
And so you can you could become infected during that time, but once your immunity is in, you have your 2 shots, you're immunized, your immunity is maximized, we expect that even if you become exposed, that you will not be a transmitter of this virus. Because your security system is up and ready, guard, ready to harm and ready to discharge this virus once it enters into your house.
So just a little, if you don't mind, why then, therefore, they're saying that in an 8 months period or so, we are going to need to, if we do take the vaccination, you're going to need to have a booster. Is it because
that's because of people who are not vaccinated. People who are not vaccinated gets the virus and it has an opportunity to mutate.
Oh, I got you.
Change. And so if this virus has mutated and changed and you become infected by the mutated virus, you could have an illness despite having the vaccine.
Right,
because if this virus has mutated and changed to the point where the vaccine does not 100% protect you, in other words, it's not able to identify that spike protein for which it's trained to do, because now the virus spike protein, say it was a green hat, it's now a red hat.
Right.
Still has the spike protein, but has changed its conformation and its shape, then you may not have 100% protection from that vaccine because of that change.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem we're having are people who are not being immunized, getting infected, the virus is now replicating and changing, and then now infecting others who may have been vaccinated or may not be vaccinated.
Oh, got you. Thanks.
And so that's why they're saying over the next 8 months, if the virus continues to replicate, it may change to the point where they now have to make or change the vaccine in such a way that it can now recognize the new form of the virus.
Right, right. Thanks, Doc.
Yep.
I want to add also that even if you're vaccinated, what we're trying to prevent is severe illness and death. So those of us who are vaccinated, when we do get the COVID, it's very likely that we will not become severely ill or die from the virus. And that is very important. Even if we do get the virus, to have a different outcome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Another person says, Doctor, thank you for clear presentation regarding the COVID virus. There are so many conspiracy theories regarding the virus. May I ask you therefore to clear up, to clear up this common one. You will die in 2 years after taking the vaccine.
Okay. So, think about getting COVID. COVID-19 infection is so deadly. These viruses love the cells that make up your lungs. It targets the cells. But nowadays we hear of the long haul, people who had the virus, had the disease, they survived it, they didn't get into ICU or whatever. Some of them may have gone into ICU, but they have survived it. But now they have memory issues. They have chronic fatigue syndrome. There's a clinic in New York that just take care of only COVID patients. They can't walk, they have paralysis, they have peripheral neuropathy, they have all kinds of symptoms, chronic kidney failure, heart disease, from a myocarditis, just a long list of chronic illnesses that are sequelae from having had COVID. Not only that, having had COVID also is a very high risk of developing deep vein thrombosis and pulmonary embolism. Clots in the veins and clots to the lungs. I've seen a lot of those. And also low blood counts, low platelet count in particular, bleeding. So you're clotting and you're bleeding at the same time. We've had all of those consults. That's the COVID infection. So talking about dying in 2 years from the vaccine, it seemed to me what they meant was you'll die in 2 years from COVID after having had it, because of all the sequelae and all the issues that you're left with. We're yet to see what is going to happen to these patients who survived COVID. But there is no data to support death in 2 years from the vaccine. For one reason, you didn't even get the virus. The vaccine is not the virus. All that they're giving you is instruction to your cells to make copies of the spike protein. That's it. And so clearly it's a myth, it's not true, there's no data to support it. There's more data to support dying from the sequelae of COVID. They're saying people in 6 months after having COVID are at an increased risk of death because of all the different things that are happening to them.
This one says, I'm fully vaccinated and cannot pass the virus. And according to your response, I can't pass the virus on. Why do I need to wear a mask and follow the protocol?
Because of the unvaccinated people.
So you wear your mask because when the virus is in your nostrils, you can, and in your mouth, and you are talking to somebody, it can be transmitted that way. But what we're talking about is when you're vaccinated, I should clarify, when you're vaccinated, you will not replicate the virus. But say for instance, I'm in this room and I start sneezing and I have the virus, and you're in the room with me and you inhaled my sneeze. You will have that virus into your mucosa and your respiratory tract for at least 24 hours or so until it dies. During that time when you have that virus trying to get into your cells, trying to, invade your body, you can be transmitting it. It's just that you will not be able to replicate it and cause it to mutate.
I will see if there's an audible question, then I will go back to the. Okay, so this one says, why does the CDC report infections and hospitalization of the unvaccinated, but does not report multiple hospitalization of the vaccinated?
They do though.
Yeah, I think so.
They do. It's reported. And I think a lot of what needs to be clarified with that is that there are different areas. The way it's not done. I think it lacks a lot of understanding because they're doing it as per capita of the population that was vaccinated versus those who are unvaccinated. So let's say an area that there's not enough vaccinations. There are 10 people and there are only 2 people vaccinated. So we have a proportion there of like 20%. So let's say 2 people from that 10 went in the hospital and 1 from the from the 8 who are unvaccinated and 1 from the vaccinated group. It's going to show a difference in proportion. That's not going to look good in the sense that it's going to show like, oh, there are more people going into the hospitals that are vaccinated if you do it by percentage. And I think that's where the problem is, why a lot of it doesn't get out there, because it's highly misunderstood because of the way it's calculated. So you have some areas that you do not have enough people who are vaccinated. And as we've said before, yes, some of the vaccinated ones will get to the hospital. So when it goes like 20% of what goes in there will be 10%, you're going to hear 10% of the people in Missouri are going to the hospitals who were vaccinated, versus it's going to say 20% of the unvaccinated went in the hospital. It's going to look like a high proportion. But in essence, the people who are vaccinated was just a small proportion of the whole population in essence. You know, you have 10 people, 8 unvaccinated, 20% vaccinated. So you have 2% of that 8 going into the hospital versus 50% going in versus like even 50% of the vaccinated. So it's going to look, oh, 50% of the vaccinated population are in the hospital. Yes, it's true, but we have to look at the hardcore numbers.
It's been said, it's been asked that if a person is fully vaccinated, why does that person need a booster?
So the booster, the idea of the booster was really to consider the immunocompromised patients. It is because of them why we're considering a booster. So when a patient is immunocompromised, meaning that their immune system is not able to mount a response to the vaccine, then they are at risk for developing the COVID-19 infection. Remember, I explained to you that it is from your bone marrow that you make these cells that fight infections. For example, your antigen presenting cell, these are all white cells. So your CD8, your CD4, your B cells, your antigen presenting cell, all of these cells are made in the bone marrow. And then from the bone marrow, they go up to the thymus to school where they're trained and taught to recognize normal you, what is you. And therefore they are taught to kill and remove anything that is not you. So if there's a virus in your body, it will attack and kill. If there is bacteria, they'll attack and kill. If there's any part of you that is altered, for example, cancer or cancer cell or anything, it's attack and kill. And so these patients who are immunocompromised, for reasons of chemotherapy or some kind of antibody therapies, for example, patients on rituximab, it removes their B cells, they can't make antibodies. Patients on high-dose chemotherapy, they're not able to make these CD8 and CD4 cells. Patients who have a stem cell transplant or organ transplant, their immune system is suppressed. So they are not able to mount a response because they don't have the cellular material to do it. Nonetheless, nonetheless, we do give them the vaccine, and they do mount maybe a small amount of response. These patients are now advocating that they get a third dose of the vaccine as a booster to help their immune system to probably respond a little better. So they are the ones really that we're targeting a third dose for now, and that's what the FDA is looking at. But what we're saying is, if we continue to have viral replication, where people are not vaccinated and the virus has an opportunity to go into their cells and replicate or to make more of themselves, then over the long term, the virus will be so changed that the current vaccine won't work. And therefore, a booster is going to be necessary for everybody. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I was just asking it because I realized someone had asked it in the chat.
I asked that and it was totally overlooked. I asked it in the chat.
I heard that, and that's why I repeated the question. It was not that it was overlooked, but so many people are.
No, because I was the third one that asked that question. It was like 2 questions came out before, and I asked like the third one. So I was hoping my question would have been answered. Elder Morgan mentioned something about the booster, and I thought maybe he was paraphrasing what my question. So I needed to know that.
I'm
so sorry, I overlooked it. I'm sliding the screen, so the screen may have actually slid over it. So I'm sorry.
Well, I was invited onto the chat basically, and I came in a little bit. As a matter of fact, I came in almost late because I came in when questions were being asked. So I don't know what the presenter, the doctors actually talked about pertaining to the vaccine, but there is a lot of uncertainty about this vaccine, a lot. And you may look at it, the doctor may look at it and say, okay, this is so and this is not so. And there's a lot of false things that are out there in social media, but there's a lot of truth also if you really look into the vaccine. Basically, what Dr. Gale is saying, am I to understand that it's only the vaccine is made up of, you said a spike protein. What else is in the vaccine? Because I have read where they said like poison is also in the vaccine.
So I mentioned that in my initial talk. I can go over it again. There are 5 main ingredients in the vaccine. 1, the messenger RNA. 2, the fat that surrounds the messenger RNA to protect it, to allow it to enter safely into your cell. 3, water. 4, salt. And 5, sugar.
What was the second one?
The messenger RNA, the fat that surrounds it, water, salt, and sugar.
So there is no poison in there?
No poison in there. No chip in there.
No microchip in about the chips. I've actually seen it in writing where it was underlined in writing. And I can't remember the name that they said that is inside the vaccine that they and why doesn't the CDC approve it? Why isn't it not approved by the CDC?
What is not approved?
The vaccine.
The CDC approved the vaccine. They have granted accelerated approval for it to be used because of the pandemic.
Well, Doc, there's a lot of uncertainty around this vaccine.
What uncertainties do you have? Maybe that's
a whole lot, because I have a whole lot. Why would I want to compromise my immune system for something that I do not know about? A vaccine that just recently come on scene. Normally vaccine take years in development. This one just came on scene.
No. That's what it is. So remember, you mentioned you came in late, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back a little bit.
Hold on. You see what you're saying about the captain and all that? Yes, I have a doctor from, I don't remember where he's from, who actually talked about the like a community. This your cells is that has houses, and it's like the green hat, and it can replicate to a blue hat or another type of hat. And yeah, I've seen presentation with that. So maybe that was the same type of presentation you were trying to bring across to your audience. Because like I said, I came in when you were through.
Right. So you mentioned how quickly things got going.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, we had SARS in 2003. Since 2003, and even before that, scientists has been studying this coronavirus and how they can make a vaccine about it. So decades of study. There's nothing quick about this. Decade of study. 2003 SARS, 2012 MERS, and now 2019 SARS-CoV-2. So 30 years of study trying, and this doctor came on 60 Minutes, I can't remember her name. She has been studying coronavirus and the messenger RNA for over 30 years. There is nothing quick about this.
Okay, one more question and I'll be off. Governor DeSantis came up with this thing that people who have the vaccine, they can, I can't remember the name of it, that you can actually go there and get it, or people who got early stage of COVID can actually go and get that type of treatment. What about the hydrochloroquine and the other type of stuff that they said, even though that those were not really meant for COVID patient, but it can be used. And now DeSantis came out with something that I guess different centers that you can go to and get this type of treatment if you come in contact with the virus, or if you have early stage of people who have the vaccine, or people who come in contact with early stage of the COVID. I don't know if you know about that.
Not in detail, but I do know that there are some FDA approved treatments that we use to manage symptoms. And tocilizumab to manage
Dr. Gail, you're talking about the monoclonal antibody.
That's what I'm saying. Tocilizumab is a monoclonal antibody that we use to manage the cytokine release syndrome that you get with the virus. There are other antibodies that have been studied with some efficacy. We know that hydroxychloroquine does not have any efficacy in treating the virus. And so there are antibodies that are being used to manage the symptoms of the virus, but there is no cure to say, okay, if you have COVID, take this and you're good.
Dr. Gail, to the sister who asked in the question, I just want to ask a question to answer a question. If we are using the technology to create a vaccine for prevention, we don't believe in it. Why are we believing in the same technology that is creating a monoclonal antibody for the same to cure the problem? It's the same technology. So here we are fasting and feasting on the controversies that is chopping the process of us not understanding. It's causing us to not even want to understand the truth about the whole matter, because we're not seeking. A lot of us are feeding on these controversies. So you are saying they are believing that, hey, the vaccine is bad, but the medicine is good. It's the same technology. It's the same technology. Monoclonal antibodies, just listen, even the last part of it, you listen to it, it's a monoclonal antibody. A lot of these things that we're taking, they are not effective against the virus. So it's like you're sending in something made to make these antibodies to initiate them. And Dr. Gail has explained in clear language as to how the whole process works. But we're saying it is the same technology that's creating these monoclonal antibodies. So how many of us are going to wait until we get sick to get monoclonal antibodies that are not 100% versus a vaccine that's not 100%? We're not forcing anybody to take a vaccine. We're hoping that we can share this education and become educated, and to understand that when we get the information out there, go and search and to see what makes sense from
For
that,
yourself.
what doesn't.
You know,
Research for yourself.
yeah, I think the trouble is for the medical community and is if this virus replicate to the point where it become more deadly. Right now, the death rate is 3% mortality. It can become as deadly as MERS, where the death rate was 34.6% mortality. And what is also frightening for the scientists and the medical community is this virus becomes so deadly and the vaccine no longer works. And the only way to stop the virus from doing that is to stop it from replicating. And the only way it replicates is through is in the human cell. They cannot live outside of itself. The virus is of no use on the surface and it needs a live human being to go inside the human's body, use the machinery of replication and replicate itself. It goes into your cell, hijack your ability to replicate and replicate itself. And as it replicates itself, it changes. Its DNA changes and it changes and mutates and mutates. And I think that's where the vaccine comes in. If you can stop it and kill it in its tracks, prevent it from replicating, then you can prevent a more deadly, disastrous virus in the community, and especially affecting those patients who are not able to protect themselves because of their immunocompromised state and various diseases that they have. And I say, if you don't want to be vaccinated, wear a mask. Wear a mask because then at least you have some protection from getting the virus and not allowing it to replicate. But the ultimate hope is that everyone will see the benefit of being vaccinated.
And it's not just about wearing masks. We have to wear the mask properly.
Mm-hmm.
The benefits of wearing the mask, yeah, I call them chin slings because they have them sling under their chins. So if we're going to wear a mask, wear it properly, it prevents some of what's in us to get out there, and it cuts down what we take in. Yes. So if we're going to wear a mask, wear a good fitting mask, right? A good quality fitting mask, and make sure it's covering our nose and our mouths, our noses and our mouths.
Thank you. Can you recommend a good quality mask? Because there are all kinds of them.
That's to be tri-layered. Yeah. So the surgical mask would be one of the better ones.
A surgical mask?
Mm-hmm. The N95 is the ultimate, but it's hard to wear an N95 for the whole day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And most times you have to be fitted for an N95 for it to be effective.
What about the KN95?
That looked at the duck beak.
Yes.
If you can tolerate it, it's very hot. I try putting it on. It's made out of plastic, and it's just very hot.
And like a face shield over it.
Face shield that is putting on full PPE. You have to have a need for that. For example, if you know you're coming in contact with somebody with the virus, they may feel the need for double protection.
You don't even know who you come in contact with.
Well, a known case, for example, if you're in the hospital and you're going to visit somebody who has COVID, they will definitely put you in a full PPE, hats, booties, gown, mask, and shield to see that person.
Okay, before I read the next question, I just want to reach out to my sister in England. She joined us. It's very late. She may be going to sleep now. I know she's going to work tomorrow. It's nice to have you. And please give my best regards to your family. This question is, what is the difference, if any, between mRNA vaccines versus Johnson & Johnson vaccine in the sense of giving a live or dead virus?
So I went over that before, but I'll do it again. So the vaccines that we're accustomed to are dead or live viruses. So the MMR vaccine is a live attenuated vaccine. What it means that they took out the virulent part of the virus and just give you the shell. So it's a live attenuated. The polio vaccine and the flu vaccine, they are dead viruses. So they took away the virus is heat killed. And so the protein is what the body recognizes as foreign and develop antibodies and cells to attack and kill. With the messenger RNA, as by Moderna and Pfizer, they basically wrap the messenger RNA, which is the book instruction in the form of these nucleotide, that is going to be recognized by the ribosome in the cell that will then make protein. And the protein, the instruction in that messenger RNA is telling your body to make spike proteins, which your body will recognize as foreign, and then make antibodies and cells and memory cells to attack and kill that. With the AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson vaccine, what they're doing, they take a vector, the adenovirus vector, remove its DNA, and they put the viral DNA into the adenovirus, meaning the instructions, and then insert it into the person, which is again capitalizing on what we know viruses do. Once a virus comes into your body, it infects your body and it passes its DNA into your cell, into your nucleus to replicate. And so they're using the same mechanism by using a vector to carry that DNA into your cells to replicate viral proteins. And again, antibodies will be formed against it because it's foreign. Antigen presenting cell will recognize it as foreign, present it to your T helper cells. They will then alert your immune system to start, your B cells and your CD8 cells to start making antibodies to attack and kill, and also memory cells to remember it when it shows up again. So that's the difference. The AstraZeneca and the Johnson & Johnson uses a vector, the adenovirus vector, to carry and dispense the instructions of how to make the capsid to your cells, while the Moderna and Pfizer gives you the instruction wrapped into a fat membrane to enter the cell and to give that cell instruction to make the spike protein. All four vaccines are given instructions to make the spike protein. It wants your body to make the spike protein. It will then present it on the surface of the cells. Your antigen presenting cell recognizes it as foreign, takes it to your T helper cells, which then instruct your body to prepare to attack and kill any evidence of this cell entering your body again.
This question says, are the reports of spontaneous abortion of the COVID vaccination false?
Sorry?
Are the reports of spontaneous abortion of the COVID vaccination false?
So they had stopped the Johnson & Johnson when a few patients had blood clots with it. But when they did their analysis, they realized that the COVID-19 viral infection causes way more thromboses and clots than the vaccine itself. And so that was a temporary stop just for them to do the analysis. And once they were convinced that it was safe, then it went back on full administration.
Okay. Is the vaccine approved by the World Health Organization?
Oh, yes. I don't know of any. Dr. Crew, do you know of any non-approvals for the WHO? No, I don't think so.
Oh, no. The only ones that you just spoken about were the times when they had stopped to make sure. And that's what we're talking about, efficacy and safety. So if they find out, that's why we have the reporting system, the VAERS. And if you get, individuals will go and report. I have seen thousands of pregnant women coming for vaccines in the city. And I've not heard any reports because we allow them to make sure they report whatever is going on. Some will come back, yeah, we had passed out, we had a lot of syncopal episodes, but I've not had any reports of individuals coming back saying, hey, I lost my child. Mm-hmm. And we gave several pregnant women, especially the Jewish women, they came in and took their vaccines.
And what they found was, they looked at several studies with pregnant women. They found that when the babies are born, they're actually born with antibodies from the mother to protect them against COVID. So you're finding that not only are the mothers protected, but the babies are also protected when they're born. Now, think about it though, if a pregnant woman gets COVID-19 infection, she has a 1 in 4 chance of being so sick that she end up in the ICU and probably die of COVID. And yet the protection that she gets from the vaccine not only protects her, but protects her baby. So yes, pregnant women are encouraged to take the vaccine. We have not heard of any abortions because of the vaccine, not that I've heard of. And so I should say, to the best of my knowledge, I'm sure somebody's gonna say, oh yes, I've heard of one. But to the best of my knowledge, I know that this is safe for pregnant women as well.
And so this is just a statement. It says it is approved only for emergency use. I think this person probably wrote while we were discussing about the emergency approval, and they said that it is approved only for emergency use. That's just a statement.
Yes. So emergency use, meaning that we're in a pandemic, and so we need to use it now.
Someone wants to ask a question, audibly?
This is a common statement I hear from people there because I'm an advocate for the vaccine, and anyone that I come in contact with, I'm always asking, are you vaccinated? And advise them to take it. And many people are telling me that I believe if I live a healthy lifestyle, if I eat well, rest well, exercise, my immune system will be able to combat this vaccine. So that's why they're not taking the vaccine. So
yeah, and we applaud them for that. We are happy that people are taking care of their health, but the vaccine is not an alternative to lifestyle. Everybody, you are supposed to be doing that. Eating well, resting well, exercising, and so on. What the vaccine is doing is complementing what you are doing. Because no matter who you are, the healthiest of person can be taken down by this virus. The healthiest of person can be attacked and killed by this virus. We see a lot of news on that. So the vaccine is to complement what you're doing, not an alternative. It's to complement what you're doing to make the response even more robust and better towards this virus.
This question says, what is your advice to individuals who do not want to take the vaccine for whatever reason? Let me scroll down to continue. Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. You stated that we cannot rely on our natural immune system. My screen is scrolling too fast. Okay. All right. This is a large question. I have a problem with my cursor. Can someone read that question because I cannot scroll so much?
What is your advice to individuals that do not want to take the vaccine for whatever reason? You stated that we cannot rely on our own natural immune system response. This vaccine is being forced on many that do not feel comfortable taking it.
You know, at the end of the day, everybody has a choice to make. I'm always an advocate for informed decision. I try to spend time to inform my patients so that when they're making their decision, they're not making it out of wrong information, that they have the right information. And so I do not believe it should be forced upon anyone, but I do believe that everyone should have the correct information so that after they review it, if they still decide I don't want it, then that's their choice. And when you make a choice, then you have to also make the decision to stick with the consequences of that choice. So if you have the knowledge of the vaccine and the knowledge of COVID-19 and you choose not to do it, if you get COVID-19 infection, then you should also realize how deadly it can be and what are the sequelae and your responsibility as a person in the community to protect others and not on your members of your family. And the other thing we can think about, if you have the information, then you can also say, well, because the virus is transmitted through droplets and contact, then I'll try to minimize droplets, I'll try to minimize contact, I'll try to keep myself as healthy as I can. And that would require wearing your mask, sanitizing your hands, washing your hands, sanitizing your home, sanitizing surfaces and so on. So that would be my advice. I don't believe anyone should be forced. I think it's your right to make that decision, but we want to make sure that you have the right information so that you can make informed decisions. Somebody had asked, is the messenger RNA inside or outside of the cell? It is inside the cell. The DNA is in the nucleus. The messenger RNA is within the cell, where it combines to the ribosomes. The ribosomes, if you think about a hamburger, yeah. Two sides of the bread, and in the middle is your hamburger. That's where you'll have the messenger RNA running through that center where it is decoded. And then the ribosomes on the other end will make the proteins. So that is within the cell. Not hearing. Oh, you're muted. Yeah.
Thanks. I'm not sure if these are two questions that are running together, but is Disterol SN glycerol 3 phosphorocholine a simple fat? And I don't know if it runs into the next question. So maybe you want to answer that first and I read the next one.
And say that again?
Is Disterol SN glycerol 3 phosphorocholine a simple fat? Is that are those simple fats?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so I don't know if it runs into this. Okay, I'm having a problem with my screen.
It's more of a protein mix. It's by itself. It usually mixes with a protein in the immune response. It's not by itself like that.
Right, and I think the next one is a statement, I'm not sure, it said monoclonal antibody therapy treatment. So maybe it was when you were talking about that, the person wrote that for clarification, if they could not hear.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. Okay, and this person just says slim chins, love it. I think those are all the questions that I can see. Oh, I'm sorry. There's another one that says, is mRNA inside the cell or outside the cell?
I answered that one. It's inside the cell, yeah. Okay. And not in the nucleus, just outside of the nucleus.
Okay, great. All right. So these are the questions we have.
Any other questions from?
Yeah, there's this one that says, why is it so important that every living human being over the age of 12 years old should get vaccine? And yet there are so many other vaccines that a host of persons didn't take in their lifetime, even the street and homeless persons. Well, there are some viruses that are more deadly than others. And the ones that are deadly are the ones that we try to make vaccines for. Polio, smallpox, measles, mumps and rubella, hepatitis B, Haemophilus influenzae, meningococcus. Those are deadly viruses, deadly bacteria. And so when the hosts become attacked by these vaccines, they can die from them. They're lethal. And so those are the vaccines that we make, and we immunize babies from they're born. And I remember in medical school, I was immunized with hepatitis B, and we got a host of vaccines during medical school. Again, so that when we face these infections in patients, that we are protected. So I guess it has to do with the virulence and the deadliness of the viruses. And so we know that this coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, SARS-CoV-1, and the Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome virus, those are all deadly viruses. Millions and millions of people die. And so it's when you face these deadly viruses that you want to protect the population and encourage vaccination.
Okay, well.
One of the big things, I think one of the big problems we're having is that we've never lived through a pandemic. We've never lived through a pandemic. So all of this that's happening, we've never seen it before in our lifetime. And I think that's what creates such havoc on us understanding the whole speed of what is going on. But we've heard even in the video that the aim behind it is not just the speed, it's the efficacy. It has to be efficacious, and yes, it has to be safe.
Okay, so to be clear, you're saying that for those people who are linking this to Revelation 13 about the mark of the beast and all of that, this is strictly scientific. We're not talking about a religious scenario here, right?
No, there is no microchip. There is no mark of the beast, anything here. Not as I can see.
I don't understand the mark of the beast part, because as Seventh-day Adventists, we're all aware that that has to do with worship. Okay, so this has nothing to do with mark of the beast. It has to do with worship. Because how would you decipher? And I want to tell everybody out there, I'm not forcing anybody to do this, but there's no vaccine out there that's set aside for Black folks, separate from white folks. There's no vaccine sitting down that says, Erica Crew, this one is for you. You know, so there's nothing like that. So, I mean, as we separate from the program, I hope we have gleaned some information, and that we can use it to our benefits to make informed decisions.
So what is your final advice, both of you, as we go into the fall, which is projected to be really deadly?
I think Brother Victor is trying to say something.
Okay, go ahead, Victor. I'm sorry.
Yes, Doc, I am totally sort of satisfied. Sorry, I've been in the car because I have to get to somewhere. But I'm very satisfied with what I've heard. The only thing I have to ask is, because, you know, Dr. Cruz started earlier by talking about the history and why we colored people, Fabian, we just go down the road. All right, go ahead. Why we colored people have reservations, right? And you all know. How can we help ourselves and our people to trust the powers that be, because they haven't proven themselves trustworthy? All right. And they have done in the past, and they continue to do a lot of stuff that are not necessarily in our best interest. And so we have not learned to trust them. We trust people like you because we know you and we know you're, I mean, you're one of us. Another concern I have is when the information that you guys get, and of course in your medical circles, how are you so sure that you are being given the full and complete story, the truth, if you call it that?
Brother Morgan?
Yes, ma'am.
If we were given vaccines in the past, and we see that the vaccines work, why is it that we're so doubtful of this vaccine?
I guess it's because of the history, because of our history. And the emphasis, you remember when it started, the emphasis was a lot on the need for colored people because you colored people are dying and colored people are being infected. And why so much colored people? Of course, right now, statistics tell us that, of course, we are the ones that are behind in getting the vaccines, but there is this doubt of the system because we are not necessarily in charge and we still don't trust those who are in charge.
I will tell you one thing. After I went to New York to do the vaccine rollout with the Department of Health, thousands, 10,000 a day, people were coming out. Never saw people of my skin color. I mean, I looked in the whole hall, most of the healthcare workers were Black folks. And I stood there many days and I watched and I said, if it is so bad, why is it we are the ones who are dying? And why is it these are the white folks who are lined up to get the vaccine? And I got in line and took my vaccine.
Yeah.
I didn't have to have the science to go with it because I saw it for myself.
Yeah.
And we have to get to the point where we can make decisions for ourselves. We have to see if the vaccine theory technology worked in the past. Why is it doesn't work in today? And I'm saying we've never seen a pandemic. We've never seen anything like this before. We would just go on our jolly ways and take a vaccine and it was okay until these new vaccine came and it started moving so fast. And our Black folks are still at the height of everything. We have the most hypertension. We have the most diabetes. We are sicker people. And a lot of it, go ahead.
There's what this pandemic has really brought out and has taken off the veil from all of our eyes is the vast discrepancy with healthcare among Black folks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Among people. If we didn't have this pandemic, we would not have seen the discrepancy that we see in healthcare system. When I saw it, I was shocked. When I was in New Jersey, I did my residency at Newark Beth Israel Medical Center, which is an inner city hospital in Newark, New Jersey. And then my first exposure to healthcare in America, so I thought this was it. And then I came to the University of Wisconsin in Madison and did my fellowship. And then I saw different healthcare. And then it opened my eyes to realize that the healthcare is not the same for all. People in places like Madison, Wisconsin, they get Cadillac type of healthcare. People in Newark, New Jersey, they get a poorer class of healthcare. And so it's a very wide discrepancy. And of course, those who are on as my folks would say, the end of the stick are the Black folks, because they are the ones that don't have the resources. Their communities are run down, they're poor, they don't have access to healthcare, or their socioeconomic situation is making it bad for them. And so the pandemic brought that out. The virus, people who were sicker were more susceptible to the virus. And so you saw that when it went through the Black communities and the Hispanics. So that's what we saw. And then of course, the distrusting of the healthcare system by Black folks because of their experience in the past with Tuskegee research. But there are rules. I have done research. Yeah, there are rules that protect against the vulnerable, like prisoners and people who can make decisions for themselves. And there's a lot of rules now in place to protect Blacks from research. And in fact, anyone from being taken advantage of by researchers. But as you said, it will take some time to educate and to develop that trust. I think people like me and Dr. Cruz will have to make it our primary goal to educate, and Leonie, as we meet people of our own color, to encourage them and give them the education that they need to make informed decisions.
Yeah, thanks, Doc. Thank you both. I think it's really a very good program. Yeah.
And I'd like to add, Doctor, that we can't overlook the fact that so many people have come out with so many contradictions and
That's
so
another thing.
much information, and people who seem to be knowledgeable. And if you listen to everything, then it's difficult.
Very difficult, yes.
It's difficult for a lot of people.
And also the politicizing of it.
Yeah,
exactly. Yes.
I remember you'll walk, and my daughter would say, there go a Trumper, no mask. Oh yes, there. And then she go, there goes a Democrat, they're wearing a mask. It could become politicized, and it shouldn't be.
Yes,
shouldn't be.
Yes.
Dr. Gale, I think one question that I would like to hear you answer for the young Black male. They seem to be very concerned about their sterility. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm listening.
It seems as if in the younger male, or particularly Black male, that they're very concerned about this vaccine and their sterility. Can you address that issue?
Sure. I was just attracted to another question. So I have no data to support that the vaccine impacts sterility. And there was one myth regards to reproduction, where it said that there was a protein that resembles the capsid protein that was on the placenta. And so they were worried that antibodies would be formed and mistakenly attack the placenta. But this has been looked at and reviewed, and there is no such thing. So that was thrown through. The only way that the vaccine could attack or affect sterility is if there is a similar protein as a capsid protein in the testicles. And I don't know of that. Dr. Cruz, do you? I don't know of any similarity of the spike protein to the testicular proteins or to the sperms when they're formed. So that's the only thing that would be a question. And I have not heard of that. And it's something I would have to research, but just listening to the news and the media and looking at the data as it comes in, I've not seen that. And there's a question real quick I saw here just now. It says, one of the reasons I believe many people are distrusting the vaccine is the scientists are disagreeing with scientists, doctors are disagreeing with doctors. So just who is right and who are we to believe? So actually, this is the one time that people really came together. The pandemic brought the scientists and the vaccinologists and the virologists and the people who has the money and this is the one time there was collaboration. And it's because of this collaboration why we had a vaccine so quickly.
Yeah.
The money was thrown into it. Millions of dollars was thrown in. People came together. And so I don't know that there's a lot of disagreements. There may be some, but it's not the main core, the core of the matter. There seemed to be collaboration.
Well, regarding the mask, some of us feel that we can always not take the vaccine and mask ourselves out of this. And I don't believe that will fully work. When I worked in the hospital, the N95 mask that we wore then, it has to be fitted.
Mm-hmm.
That's all gone through the window today. Most of the masks that we're wearing today, they're not fully fitted or properly fitted on our faces. So eventually, as we get more transmissible variants, these masks will work but so much. Right now, as of 2 weeks ago, we were told as we do our house call visits that now we have to ask all these patients to now wear 2 masks instead of 1. And what they're saying, 1 is uncomfortable. So can you imagine 2? 1 is uncomfortable for me. So I can imagine those patients. So eventually, we really, in the long run, will not be able to mask ourselves for full protection. It's just a matter of time where that will not work fully anymore.
My battery's running low. I need to get charge on it.
Okay, well, Doc, before you go, before it dies, my screen is not functioning. I cannot scroll, but
Let us see if I can get my
someone
husband
can
to bring
read
the
for me.
charger.
Yeah, so if someone can read for me from Dr. Daphne Stephen Valcourt, a good friend of mine. Hi, Dr. Valcourt from my church in New York. I cannot scroll down, so can someone read the rest of the screen for me, please? Dr. Valcourt, my screen is not functioning. I can see the top of it, but if I scroll down, it doesn't move. Can you just read?
Okay, I'm seeing, somebody's asking what are the home remedies we can use? I think I'm not seeing what you're seeing. Thank you, Dr. Sushila.
Okay, so what I can see from my screen, I cannot move. It says, thank you, doctors, for sharing your knowledge and clearing up some of the myths. Sadly, COVID is a health issue that has become highly politicized, and then I cannot go from people.
Can anyone else read it?
People of color also have genuine fears due to past experiments on people of color, such as the Tuskegee experiment and the AIDS trial.
Thank you, thank you.
And then there's another question that asks, what are the home remedies we can use?
Reasons. I believe many people are distrusting the vaccine.
Okay, we're talking about home remedies. Anything that can help to boost your immune system, we can use. There's no cure that we can take in our bodies to cure the virus, but we can take in like high antioxidants that can help us to boost our immune system. So whatever is available that can boost our immune system, and Dr. Gale, alluded to that earlier, that we know we need our rest, we know all of us know about the new start. Yes, we need to put those in play. And anything that you can afford that will boost your immune system will help to boost your immune system, but it's not a cure for the vaccine, for the virus, sorry.
So I think the question before, she had asked, what are the home remedies that can be used to lessen the impact on the infected person?
That's what I'm saying. The answer doesn't change. If there are things out there like turmeric that boost your immune system, any type of antioxidants that we would normally use to boost our immune system, we can still consume those. But I will still stick that they are not cure for the virus. They're immune system boosters, but they're not cures.
There's another statement here that says, one of the reasons I believe many people
one of the reasons I believe many people are distrusting the vaccine is the scientists are disagreeing. Is that the one you want to read?
We already answered that one though.
Yeah, we already answered that one. Yeah. There's another one I don't think you read that says, thank you, doctors, for sharing your knowledge and clearing up some of the myths. Sadly, COVID is a health issue that has become highly politicized. People of color also have genuine fears due to past experimentations on people of color, such as the Tuskegee experiments and the AIDS trials. Dr. Daphne Stevenson Valcourt.
Okay, well, we owe so much gratitude to you, doctors. You have taken time out from your family and you have given us quality hours. You were very patient and you are well researched. And we just want to thank you so much on behalf of Oasis and our audience for being so generous with your information and your advice. And I really believe that the time that you have invested in us this evening will pay dividend in saving lives. Thank you so much, and please keep up the good work.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Amen. Dr. Crew, I just want to thank you for organizing this for us. Dr. Crew, she has been working with us so long, and I've never called Dr. Crew for any reason, and she has not gotten back to me and come to my assistance. Thank you so much, Doctor. And so most people know Dr. Crew, but Dr. Gale, for those of you who don't know, we are from the same church in Jamaica, and she has moved within 10 minutes from me. And I'm just hoping that we're going to hook up again.
Amen.
Her husband and her husband. And 2 children.
Is Brother Gale on?
He's taking a nap.
Okay, all right. And their children.
2 children, and her sister's planning and moving down here too. So
praise God. Amen.
We're
so
happy for that.
Praise God. Okay, so Dr. Valcourt is from my church in New York. She shared with me a very great experience last night of a program she sponsored. And as a result, they have helped a whole community in New York moving up the vaccination rate from 29 to 40% as a result of a program like this. So she has spent her entire life in working with the disadvantaged people. And so Dr. Valcourt, I want to thank you so much for your effort, and I'm hoping you two will move close to us. Amen. There is a gentleman, Adonis Vergara. He's all the way from the Philippines. He woke up very early this morning because they're like 12 hours ahead of us just to join us. Adonis, I just want to thank you and your family, and we will speak tonight. You're 12 hours. So thank you so much, Adonis. I am told that my sister Valerie in Jamaica is on, and my brother Clayton. I just want to thank you. And Sharifa, I'm told that there are some brethren from the Lehigh Church. Would you mind introducing them to us, please? Earlier I saw the Valen. Sharifa, are you on still? You're muted, I think. Okay, so since we cannot get Sheriff, I want to thank the brethren from the Lehigh churches. I saw brethren from Salt Lake, from Clermont, and from wherever you are, right around the world, we want to thank you. We're hoping that you will be a beacon of hope to many, because it's a serious thing. People are dying, but if you notice, when the vaccine came out, I think there were about 540,000 somewhere deaths. And since people have been vaccinated, I think we're just about 600 and maybe 20,000 somewhere there. So with whatever theories are going around, it shows that the vaccination process is saving lives. And the whole idea is lives are being saved. So remember, keep practicing safe distancing, wash your hands, wear your mask, and do whatever you can to do to keep healthy, because God can only do so much. He's not going to force us. But I think these doctors did, I know these doctors did a lot of justice in helping to clear up some of the, I would say, superstitions about the virus. Leonie, you want to say
And also
something?
with us, I recognize that we had a vaccine clinic at our church, and I know that some of you are on. I want to thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Right.
And so my name is Joyce Morgan. Pastor Morgan and Sister Leonie's sister-in-law and Sharifa's mother. I bring great and appreciation to Doctors Dale and Q on behalf of all the churches on the Treasure Coast here in Florida. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for those vital information. And these information decrease my previous conspiracy theories that was going on. I thank you so much, and I thank my daughter for inviting me to this forum. Thank you so much. God bless.
Joy.
Amen. Joy, I did
you.
not know you were on.
Good.
Thanks for coming. Joy is one of the Bible workers with our conference. Thank you, Joy. It's my sister-in-law. Okay. Ella Blackwood, are you on? I would just like to ask you to do the closing prayer. Are you on, Ella Blackwood? Okay. So again, thanks everyone. We're going to ask Ella Blackwood to just close in prayer.
Great.
Much noise back here, so tell them they're making noise.
Oh, great God. Okay. Oh, great God and our Father in heaven, we thank you for the privilege you have given to us this evening, that we could be together on this program with our doctors. Father, wish above all things that we would prosper in health, even as the soul prospereth. So, Lord, we are so grateful to know that the information we have gotten this evening has opened our minds.
Amen.
Help us to be like the Bereans. Let us search, and let us, Father, be able to accept whatever is given according to your will and your good pleasure.
Amen.
Be with these physicians as they continue to work. Protect them and guide them, we do pray, Father. Set an edge around them and keep them in this pandemic. We ask, Lord, that you will help us to focus our minds on the things that are lovely, things that are just, things that are of good report. And Lord, if there be any virtue or there be any praise, let us think on these things. Thank you for the God you are, and we praise and glorify your name. And as we embark upon a new week, we are asking you, Lord, to help us to recognize that you are in our leading. We will be entering an uncharted waters, but we know that our God is able to take us through the storms. Hear and bless us now. Be with all our families, our children, wherever they are. And Lord, help us to look forward to the blessed hope of your glorious appearing, when none of these things will bother us anymore, but we will be safe in the arms of Jesus. Thank you for being the God you are. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Amen. Someone has their hands up. That's what I heard. Someone has their hands up. Okay. Also, this program is recorded, so we have access to it for anyone who came on late or would love to share it. We have it recorded. You can request it from us.
Amen. And thank you, Leonie, for sending out so many invitations and for moderating for us. God bless you all. Have a wonderful, dynamic, and successful week.
Thank you.
And doctors, thank you very much. I think you have removed my doubts.
Amen.
Yes, Lord.
Amen.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah. Oh. All right. Right.
Okay, thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much,
Thank
Lupus.
you.
Thank you. I want to thank Devon for the communication director for streaming for us this evening. Thank you, Devon. Oh, Adonis, I just heard your voice. Adonis is from the Philippines. Thank you,
Hi, sir.
Adonis.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're
Thank you,
welcome.
What time is
Is he
What time is it now, Adonis, in your country?
It's 8:52 a.m. here, ma'am.
2 a.m. Oh, thank you so much.
8:52 a.m.
8:52 a.m.?
Yeah.
Oh, in the morning?
Yes, they're in the morning.
Okay, that's good.
Making the sacrifice to join us.
No, you're welcome.
That
Thank you
is
too for
so
inviting.
kind. You're welcome. So I will see you when
This is an international meeting.
yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
It sure
Amen.
is. Mhm.
Amen.
International meeting.
Amen.
It was fun. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you.
Our
The
pleasure.
pleasure is
Thank
ours.
you.
Praise God.
Mhm.
Yes.
Praise God.
Well received.
Amen. Amen.
Have a good night.
Okay,
Thank
and
you.
please give our best regards to the family, Doc.
I will. And have a great
Amen.
week. God bless.
Good
Thanks,
night.
God
Good
bless.
night.
Remember to keep my mangoes when they're fall.
Okay, sure. All right. All right. Okay. We